special town board meeting for the town of Arundequoit, June 1st, 2021. Visitors are invited to join the board members to rise to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Councilwoman Freeman,
Present.
Councilman Purdickine,
Here.
Councilwoman Romeo,
Here.
Councilman Maynard, Supervisor Sealy,
Here.
and Attorney for the town.
Here.
Thank you, and thank you for board members for attending this special board meeting. Mr. Weiner did inform us he was unable to get out of work, which we understand given this for most of us is our part-time position, so he's not able to join us today. But a quorum being present, we can now move forward with the two agenda items on the agenda. Madam Clerk, I'll ask you to call up the first item for board action.
Item number 1, resolution concerning the award of bid for the Bay Shore Boulevard Sanitary Improvements Ready project.
Madam Clerk, I hope people heard that. Can I just ask you to talk into the mic? It's okay.
Thought there were so few of us you could hear me.
I know, yeah.
Sorry.
It's our adoring public at home. I want to make sure here's your soothing
okay.
voice of calm.
Item number 1, concerning the award of bid for the Bay Shore Boulevard Sanitary Improvements Ready project.
Motion to adopt?
Moved.
In a second?
Second.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Mr. Kiley for an explanation and then perhaps ask the town attorney to add whatever she sees of value, and then I believe allow one of the involved parties the opportunity, if they want, to come up and speak to the board as is their due process right. But I'm going to now ask Commissioner Kiley for an explanation.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. This board has received several communications from myself to V&B Underground Utilities, Inc. With regard to the bid opening for the Bay Shore Boulevard low-pressure sewer that was opened on April 27th. With regard to that bid opening, V&B Underground was the low bid at that time with $1,126,000 even as their low bid, and Blue Heron was the second low bidder at $1,963,700. We did not act upon this immediately, as we wanted to provide, as the supervisor just laid forth, an opportunity for V&B Underground Utilities, Inc., an opportunity to retort or rebuke the findings with regard to the bids that were opened that day and with regard to current ongoing projects within the town. I'd like to break this into two different components if I can. First, just being the bids and how they were received, how they were opened. V&B Underground had several deficiencies within their original bid, but of course, in seeing as the dollar values were so widespread, we certainly wanted to take our time and review very thoroughly the situation. Within their bid package, they did not have the sexual harassment certification, the anti-discrimination certification. Within the bid package open that day, their qualifications and listing of current projects were not provided, and previous projects required through the addenda were not provided that day, but provided after the fact. So just within that first bid category, as we go through and we check each thing to make sure that each bid is known as responsible, and we certainly look at that and review each one of these components very thoroughly. The second component is with regard to ongoing projects, and Mr. Brosvet is here from V&B to discuss a little bit further the Seneca Road water main project. But this board has received communications from Labella Associates, who is the town engineer and has also been retained by the Seabreeze Water District to implement a water main replacement on Seneca Road, east side of town, over towards the bay. There was a collapse of an existing water main on that project. which created a significant sinkhole, approximately 30 feet long by 15 feet wide by 8 feet deep for an inn, Seneca Road, and then a tunnel that had collapsed for approximately another 70 feet or so on that roadway. As a result, and again, this board has seen communications both from Labella Associates, acting on behalf of the Seabreeze Water District, and V&B Underground, acting, of course, on behalf of themselves, with regard to the water main failure at this location. Given the information at hand that we've processed, and again, V&B is here to at least share their side of the story, which is helpful. It is apparent, or at least from Labella Associates' standpoint, that V&B was negligent within their work at that time, thus the cause of that water main, which created significant issues on that roadway. Mr. Brozovich can certainly speak to retort that commentary from Labella Associates. However, in light of this deficiency on this project and a past untimeliness at the Cornwall Pump Station project, coupled with the numerous bid day issues and deficiencies noted, it's my recommendation to the board that we would move to dismiss V&B Underground as the low bidder and award to Blue Heron for the Ready project on the Bay Shore Boulevard low-pressure sewer project. I think at this time, Mr. Supervisor, if Mr. Brozovich, and Keith, I'm sorry if I'm butchering your last name, bud. If he'd like to provide any commentary on Seneca, by all means, sir, I think you could.
1 second, I just have a few questions to clarify. So, this is for the town attorney. So generally, what necessitates this being done through town board action today? What necessitates us having to, as opposed to just awarding the bid? Is it because that, as in the bids that were received, they were the low bidder, and as such, we are not accepting that bid and going with another bidder? Is that correct?
That's exactly right, Mr. Supervisor. So typically, the way that this would work, the low bidder would receive the contract, but the town, consistent with New York State competitive bidding laws and all other applicable laws, always has the right to reject an apparent low bidder if in fact that low bidder is deemed irresponsible or somehow not qualified to do the work. Now, Commissioner Kiley has made the recommendation that the apparent low bidder here, V&B Underground, be deemed irresponsible, and thus we can skip over them in awarding the bid, the contract. But before we do that, we need to give V&B Underground an opportunity to be heard as to their take on Commissioner Kiley's suggested action.
Gotcha, and it's my understanding that May 17th, 2021, the town board received a memorandum from Labella Associates, who's the town engineer, regarding its recommendation on this course of action. It's my understanding that on the same day, a memo very similar in form was sent to V&B as well, notifying them of the findings that mirrored that which was sent to the town board, which the commissioner just outlined. So board members should have received both, and as part of the process, we just make sure that people are kept well informed. I understand a representative from the company is here. Sir, you're welcome to come wish to speak to the board as we weigh the decision. And just for our benefit, just say your name. Of course, I think we have the spelling of it, but the pronunciation would be helpful.
Absolutely.
Good afternoon.
Hi, my name's Keith Boisvert.
I swear I'm not doing that on purpose.
That's all right. I do have documents for one person. If they want to make copies or pass around, I don't know. This is just kind of some notes to bullet points to hit.
You can give them to the clerk, and we'll make sure that they're in the record, but it might be helpful if you can just explain them. I don't know if you, gotcha.
So the first thing in the letter was stating that our bid was sufficient with some items that needed to be supplied. First was a bidder's qualification, That bidder's qualification came in an addendum that basically stated that, and this is the addendum, each bidder must fully complete and submit the bidder's qualification statement. And then it goes on with the bidder's qualification statement as with his or her experience, equivalent work scope, equipment, organization, work contemplated, bidder must include project experience, and so on. My point is, that says each bidder must fully complete and submit the bidder's qualification. It does not say each bidder must submit with their bid the bidder's qualification, because number 3 says within 5 days of the date specified in the advertisement for the bids, the qualification statement, a detailed financial owner statement must be submitted to the engineers by the apparent low bidder. That is in the addendum. That's number 3, right under number 2. So that can be reviewed. The second I want to bring up is the certifications, which was a sexual harassment and whatnot. Those, if you look, there's a couple places. I've handed in a table of contents of the bid. It has a bidder's documents, and then it has a contract documents. Okay? Bidder's documents is what we did. This is my opinion. Contract documents are a contract after it's awarded to the bidder. Now, take a step further. Instructions to bidders. Instructions to bidders. Contractors are required to complete and submit the following forms with their bids. Non-collusion, site investigation. Does not say anything about sexual discrimination or the other form. And then, of course, 3 is just a sign-in sheet. It's the bid tabs, and then, of course, the bid items that were supposed to be submitted with the bid and checked off if they were, which they were. So, I think that answers my dispute on what was supposed to be handed in with the bid. The next is Cornwall. Cornwall, we did do a project back in 2016 area. Oh, here it is. So I have a collection of, I didn't get real deep because it was about 5-6 years old, but I do have some bullet points of our action, and then, of course, you know, if there's more questions, I'd have to probably dig deeper and look into the. So the contract and the date order change after we had some change orders. We had some issues with material being delivered and in a timely fashion. They were flight material, they were material that the town requested, and they were the model numbers and spec numbers that the town required. So after going back, we finally came to an agreement that December 2nd was going to be our completion date. So I've got this change order. December 6th, I wrote a letter that basically there's a few more reasons. We wanted to extend it for 2 to 3 weeks. I think I just said 2 weeks. 2 weeks. And basically I outlined that the electric had not been resolved. Basically the town had to set up an account because they're the customer, and they had to pay for a deposit, whatever, and then, of course, after that, we had to coordinate RG&E to come in and finish. That included the gas, and the gas lateral was not completed until 11/29, which, again, these are things that I feel is out of our hands. They're on RG&E's and that back part. So there's a couple other miscellaneous things that were resolved. The Kistner came, they had the wrong hole cord in there, so they actually had to come back out and re-core it on site. That was done on 11/28. That, of course, delayed some of our production that we could have done between 11/28 and December 2nd was our deadline, so we couldn't do that in that short period to complete that. And the float pumps and the transducer wires were too short from the manufacturer, So that had to be reordered, and they weren't in at that time. So I've got a response letter. Basically, I show various amounts of emails back and forth, and it looks like December 22nd was the date of the startup. So then, it spilled into the following year regarding some of the restoration issues. The restoration issues was outlined on a letter from LaBella on April 20th that I have. Basically, I show some communication from basically April 20th to May 16th when we actually did the work. And the reason why I'm bringing that up, because in the letter it said from the town stated that we were not responsive, repeatedly failed to appear to perform for the work. So I wanted to address that. So I can show you the emails of our restoration work and the timeliness of what we did and the emails that went back and forth. The only thing that did get delayed was the final asphalt of the pump station, which was, again, that was expanded and above and beyond the scope of the original job. And basically, I remember that year as being a real wet year, and with the expansion, I wanted to get a paver in because it was not just handwork. When the original contract came out, that was just a little handwork of the restoration of the asphalt. This one required a paver. So it did take me until July 24th to complete the asphalt. There was two other minor items. One was there were bolts for the hatch. They were on there when we got delivered. Somehow they got lost. I had to order them. They got that took timely to get those little bolts. And then there was actually a strain relief cable. Well, the strain relief cable, there was some confusion because the people out in the field and the conversations with the field people from the sewer department didn't require that. Unfortunately, we took it as okay instead of probably following up with an email that stated, is this okay? The people from the sewer department don't deem this necessary. So I did say that, but it came through around and eventually got done, but that was the confusion. I have a punch list and the dates completed that came from LaBella, so it shows you when we did complete it. And then, of course, just a bunch of emails that I did, and I was on corresponding with the engineers for our schedule and what was going on. I didn't want to let that go, that we were not showing up. So that can be looked at. The water main break. Well, we can take the sewer break first. The sewer break, the stakeout was off. Sewer department verify that. I believe it was Dave that came out. We dug the sewer break up and fixed it ourselves, and we consider this a done deal. Matter closed for us. But we've already done the repair, and for that matter. But we do feel, and I do have pictures, which of course I don't have it with me, but it does show the sewer stakeouts were about 3 to 4 feet off. The other matter was the water main break. Now, there was a couple things that the engineer wrote in his letter that he felt the water main break was from. So I have a starter letter, but at the end of the day, the insurance company is going to write the official letter. So, because I'm not anything but a person over here, so, but I did want to, view my findings.
Okay.
We dug a test hole on last Wednesday. We dug down to the water main, and we dug down to our water main and the existing water main. I've got a picture of it. Basically, the existing water main's 4 feet deep. Our water main's 7.5 feet deep, and we're 3 feet basically to the west of it. So that puts us about 5 plus or minus feet away from the existing water main. Within 5 feet of the break. So really physically impossible for anything from us that would have done anything with that. Now to take it a step further, again, I don't have it, but the insurance company has the break, they have the pipe, they're sending it out to a private lab to investigate what the break and the cause of the failure is. That will probably really deem what the nature is. But from observations of being 5 feet away, there's no way, physical way. They also stated that the break from the force main might have caused because of the flushing out of the force main as it turned on or broke, if you will. Well, that force main break was about 220 feet away. I have a picture. Basically, the engineers are stating that 200 feet away, the water rushed down, or the sewer water rushed down our hole and created a bigger hole, basically washing away the ground or the well, as I said in the first, we're 5 feet away, there's no way it washed away. I also have a picture of us where we put a hydrant in, which is about 50 feet away from the force main break. And I show the annular space. It might be a little challenging because the picture is black and white. If you had a computer, you could really see it because it's color. But that annular space is literally no more than 6 inches from the actual pipe. So there's no way, and that was only 50 feet away. 250 feet away, it would even be less. And who knows if that was even. My point is, that sewer break had no value or nothing to do with the water main break or, the pipe. Basically, they're saying, the engineers are stating that the sand around the existing pipe that broke was compromised and actually created some kind of void, which ended up creating a break. So with that proof and evidence, there's no way at 5 feet away, from my opinion, that we have any responsibility. The last thing that the engineers were stating was that the calibration of our equipment might be off because of some depth issues, basically at the entry and the exit pit. But with the entry and the exit pit, there's three factors. One, when we drill out and I put a depth down, that is the center of our rod. That is a pilot hole. We're drilling a 3-inch pilot hole. That's the center of that hole is the depth that I'm reading. When you put in a pipe, 8 inches, 12 inches, well, this one's 8 inches, but we put in a 14-inch hole opener, so we open it from 3 inches to 14 inches, so that pipe can lay anywhere in that hole. Well, in that hole, if it's laying on top, that pipe's going to be 7 to 8 inches shallower than what I've put down. Because the pipe is an 8-inch or basically a 14-inch hole. If that center of the rod was 5 feet deep, that's the center of that pipe or the center of that hole. So that pipe could, conceivably 8 inches is going to be at least minimum 4 inches from there. And if it's sitting on top, it could be 7, 8 inches. The other factor is the entry and exit pits. When you bore, basically, and especially in this soil, which is very sandy, very loose, the exit pit, you're going to pull. So basically, you're pulling that pipe from a 0 depth to a 6.5, 7 feet depth. So if picture that coming down, you're going to, and here's the dirt, and here's the hole that it comes in. So it's going to hit that dirt, and it's going to rise up. It's going to, you're going to have some of that dirt wash away, or so the pipe will be up. So basically, we just dig back 5 feet to get it back to depth. 2, on the entry pit, that's the same thing. Our drill sits on top of the ground. It's at a 30-degree angle. We enter that ground at 30-degree angle. And when I level that thing off, you're going to have a little bit of play on the rods, which could conceivably bring that pipe up to a shallower depth. Not by much, but maybe 6 to 8 inches. But again, we dig back on it. We dig it down to the depth that we have it from those entry and exit pits, so it's never an issue that it's left that way. taking it a step farther, all the services that we've dug up that weren't exposed, but digging up now are to depth within that 4 to 8 inch range of our measurements. And the calibration was done on, we usually try to do it once a month, but this one was done on 4/14/21. So that I got pictures of, and that, you know, the break, of course, was for a week or so later. Oh, the last, the tieback. The tieback I wanted to perform last week to figure out what the issues were. We weren't able to with a couple of things, a wedding, so we lost a day, we shut it down. We're gonna try to dig it this week. I've got a call into Crane Hogan, who put that, installed it, just to get some more information, and then to see what avenues, once we do dig it up, I wanna have at least some information on how we're gonna repair it. Even if we don't even know what it is yet, but I wanna have the information of what that piece is, that tieback piece is. So I'm waiting on that, but I do and will have that exposed this week, by the end of the week, to have a better understanding of what happened to that. So,
Anything else?
no,
I'm gonna let Commissioner Kiley, if he has anything, just to respond to the board. Obviously, I don't want this to be a perpetual back and forth, but you can stay up there if you want, okay?
okay.
Okay.
And this is very helpful, obviously, Keith. I appreciate you coming in and discussing, specifically over on Seneca Road. The town has been more in a monitoring situation as we, through this project, as we are not a primary player. We don't hold the contract for you guys on that, only, having the road as a town-issued road. With regard to a couple of points, just to confirm much of what you said, with regard to the sanitary sewer cut, that is a closed book, you're 100% correct, and the flow with regard to the wastewater at that location, due to the limited flow, I would highly suspect that had no significant bearing, as you were stating, with regard to this. I just don't see that amount of flow having that issue on that location, and as it is several hundred feet away. The tieback as well, I understand that you guys are moving forward with the repairs to the tieback. I appreciate that. If you could just give us means and methods on how you're going to prepare, what you're going to do, how you're going to do it. That way we have a chance to, QA, QC, make sure all parties are satisfied with that. Calibration information, so this board is hearing for the first time a lot of the information that you're stating, whereas the Labella report or the memo that came out that, of course, you have, this board is seeing that information, prior to this updated information. So the calibration reports, any further confirmation in the future, if you have your insurance rep that's proceeding with more of a formal letter in that regard, would be most helpful. So as for Seneca Road, I really don't want to comment all that much, just because I'm not, one, a subject matter expert with regard to water mains, and two, ultimately, we're not the primary player there. We're more an agent, a seat at the table, as it's our road, as it was our sewer, our tieback, our infrastructure at that location. So any information you have, when it's available in final form from either yourself as a firm or from the insurance agent that you're working with, would be most helpful for consideration with regard to Seneca Road. For Cornwall, you and I, obviously, we know each other from that project. The quality of your work has never been an issue. That pump station has never had significant mechanical issues. Once we got it completed, it was satisfactory. It was getting to that, and that was the most challenging part. And certainly, I can appreciate, other work comes up, and closing out a few of those final punch list items certainly tends to linger in any large scale public works project. The hard part for us is if we were, and when we were, paying an inspector to be out on site, and then, of course, there was either insufficient or no communication on, when you were going to report back to work on site or not report back to work. So then those incurring costs at the project closeout, as you can recall, that was really that hardship that both parties had to settle on as that over-under change order was closed out. So I don't want to cut the quality of work that you do. I just want to, at least with regard to Cornwall, that was in fine standing. It was more timeliness and communication, which really was a thorn in our side constantly. As you said, it was mid-July by the time we closed that out, when we were looking to be closed out in December. And so noted, right, grass doesn't grow in the fall and in the winter months. That's not something that we're contending or contesting. At this juncture, it was more of that timeliness at the end, and the charges for inspections really became quite a hindrance at that project closeout. Those inspectors being paid by the town, those inspectors being LaBella Associates inspectors, charging that rate in the field. And lastly, again, this is valuable information, and certainly when we have such a spread in a project, these actions take time and thought, especially if we're moving through, this type of conversation. So again, having your presence here is extremely helpful in ensuring that, one, we are doing what is in all parties' best interests, but the addendas that come out in any contract, it's inherent with regard to an addenda that they come in with the bids. Blue Heron did have those addendas in there. I understand your point and accept that. I understand where your position is on that matter. With regard to the verbiage, I'd want to take a look at that myself and double check that. That's all I have, Supervisor.
Thank you. Sir, anything to add or respond before the board, we have discussion? You're pretty thorough. I really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
pretty much.
Okay, well,
Reason to beat it down.
no, I appreciate you
Yep.
I appreciate you coming before us. We wanted to give you the opportunity. You can be seated if you want. I think, as a board, we probably want to discuss, so, what's up?
May we ask questions?
Of course, yeah, go ahead. I apologize. The board members can ask you questions, so it's through the chair, but go
I
ahead.
have 3 quick questions for you, sir, about the Cornwall project, if you would.
Okay.
Because I don't have that in front of me. I just want to make sure I have absolute clarity myself. You mentioned in the beginning that there were some back-ordered items that made it challenging to get right to work. Were those things spec'd out in the bid, or did that information come to you after the fact?
Spec'd out is in the bid as far as what items to get or the time frame that it would come in.
What items you needed?
Yes, that was in the spec.
Thank you.
There was no,
Okay. You mentioned the name Kistner. Is that a subcontractor that was working?
that's a material supplier for.
Material
manhole.
supplier
Yep.
that you had to wait on as well.
They supplied the manhole, the hole was cored wrong, and they had to come out and redo it in the field.
Okay. The last question I had on that project was, when was the significant change order in the asphalt made apparent to everybody? It sounds like that was kind of a thing, from a very small, hand-worked area to needing significant more work.
That's gonna be a challenge for me to answer, to be honest with you. I know it was talked about in November,
Okay.
but I don't remember where the actual kind of conversation went,
Okay,
or
but
who
talked
kind of
about
said,
in
hey, let's.
November.
I know what we ended up doing, we just ended up, the driveway went from here, now it went over to the new pump station, then they just wanted to put in a little offshoot to the new pump station.
Understood. That conversation is helpful. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you
Okay.
very much.
I got a couple questions, Dave. Now, what I heard you say, now, while you were doing that job, at this time that the construction was going on, you had a water main break and a sewer break on the job?
Correct.
Correct. At the same time as your work was going on, right? I mean,
Well, the water main, let me just, so I can understand.
Sir, do you
The water
mind,
main-
we have we record these. Do you mind just speaking in the microphone?
the water main break,
The water main break actually occurred that night at about 9:00, 9:30.
okay. You guys had been working that day though, right? And then
It
you
worked that day, and we had crossed that point of water main at about probably 12:30, 1:00.
Okay. What actually broke on the water main? Was it a joint, the pipe, or the foundation joint?
The pipe itself broke in half.
The pipe itself broke right in half, okay. So now the water main break, you get a call, right? The water main break. Did you get a call?
I got a call from the supervisor at about
Okay.
9:30.
Okay, that there's a water main break. So, who fixed the water main break?
It never got fixed. What happened was I got a call and they had already called out CP Ward, that must be their emergency
Yeah, okay. So they repaired
contractor,
it?
so, well, all they did was dig the hole up. And of course, they didn't have to dig anything up, it was a big hole. They didn't do anything, they actually left because it was too big of a job for them, and they brought in Villager to complete. And then Villager came in, nobody repaired it, what we ended up doing was shutting the water main off and keeping it off, and then Villager ran a temporary water main along the road, and then we hooked up services from there.
Okay, so the repairing, obviously, that was just and then eventually it got repaired, obviously, right?
It's never gotten repaired, it's still on that temporary,
still
but
on the
because we
temporary
were
line?
so close to completing,
Okay,
that we were just switching services over. The amount of cost, I'm guessing, I didn't make that decision, but to repair it at the time, it just was better. I didn't make that decision. I guess
Okay.
I just leave it at that.
so they thought that you had the issue with the water main break. You
They
had
felt
caused
that
it.
we were,
And this is what we're all discussing now, right? Because obviously, like you said, it hasn't been repaired yet. It's not been repaired. And
No, but the
does
damage
it go to all the houses down there, Bob? Where's this water main break go to?
Yes, it services several private residences from the top of the hill down
About 18.
towards the Newport Yacht Club.
Right. Okay.
Approximately 6 to 7 homes on temporary water at this time.
Okay.
And Keith's 100% right. They did not repair the water main. They just ran a new temporary main, got that authorization from Monroe County DOH.
Okay. How long's that temporary main been going on now? Since that day since 9 p.m. that night, right, or whatever it was. Okay.
no, the next day, right?
I just needed some clarity. That's all. Okay. So you're saying like 6 or 7? Okay. And then there was a sewer break, correct? Was that a foundation issue? Okay, did it erode underneath the foundation of the sewer? Is that what happened with that one too?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, I saw it.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
no, basically, the sewer mark was about 3 to 4 feet away, and when we came through, we're putting actually a mainline valve there. So when we were pulling the pipe through, the sewer main was actually closer to where we were installing the water main, and we actually hit it with the drill pipe.
Okay. So then that's what caused the break? Okay.
Correct.
And that was repaired
Yes,
by you?
yes.
Okay.
I have a quick question, just for a point of clarification. We start with the retaining wall tieback. I know there were pit tests that need to be done. I'm talking about pit test 1, 2, and 3, as well as 4 for that one. My understanding is that those tests were not done?
Correct.
Okay. And for the water main, there were also pit tests, 4, 6, and 7. Only 2 of those were not done?
4 was not part of,
Okay.
7 was done,
Okay,
6 was not performed. And again, the test pits were for our reference points to dig these points up, but we rely on stakeout or markouts of the utilities, and then we kind of use that as a reference to where we need to dig. You know, so if he's got a test pit at 7 + 0, we may have moved it to 7 + 50. Now, he's got in his report that while we did find the water or a utility crossing, we did not expose or find the water main. Well, that's going to be in the full report, but basically where we potholed and we dug 2 feet on either side of it, we found the water service. That water service was 5 feet deep. There's no way that water main generally would be any deeper, but even if it was still east of us, I'll call it, by another 2-3 feet. There was no reason to expose that water main at that point because we went through right where we exposed where we exposed the water service.
And just one last one, and all these pit tests were in the, specs, correct?
They were on the plans.
Okay.
And again, they were reference points. They weren't necessarily, from my position, the exact where we needed to dig these.
That's all I have for you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else with questions? This is gonna be a question for my fellow board members, that we do have a motion before us. We've received a lot of information. The question is now whether or not, we feel we have adequate information or feel the need to review the documents, which I'm assuming what he provided, a lot of that was spelled out, through his testimony to the board. If anyone has concerns about, or perhaps wanting to table to allow the opportunity to review those, now would be the time to just express them. If you feel confident and that you've received enough information to make a guided, informed decision, then we will proceed.
You can
Okay.
proceed.
All right, so before us, we have sir, and I appreciate you coming forward. I know that's not easy. I know it's not under ideal circumstances to address us, and trust me, the feeling is mutual there, and certainly not the manner with we wish to converse with contractors. The plain view is, I think, at this time, the recommendation is going to be to proceed with the resolution to award the bid to Blue Heron in the amount of $1.729 million. It's a very difficult decision because one thing we have to weigh is the dollars at stake, and your bid was considerably less, and, we're always mindful of fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayer. So trust me, this is not a decision that we make easily or simply, or that we don't take to heart with the information that we receive on both ends. We have received reports from the town engineer recommending this course of action. It's not our obligation, but certainly we work with the town engineer, Labella, to consult us and advise us on decisions. We do have people with backgrounds in construction, but we, for the most part, are laypersons with regards to the mechanics of a construction job. So it's our job to rely on the consultant's input that we receive, and from our commissioner, Mr. Kiley. And trust me, Mr. Kiley, I know this decision was not easy for him to recommend as well. Notwithstanding, I remember back in 2016, I was new as supervisor. I thought a pump station was the most miraculous public works project in the world. They're very important, don't get me wrong. So I just remember Bob's frustration with that project as well. And I understand nothing is simple, nothing happens in a vacuum, but I do remember frustrations endured by the town or incurred by the town. And certainly you've provided information you believe that refutes some of the underlying roots of that frustration from the town's vantage point. But nonetheless, I do recall that, and the engineer has affirmed the previous experience working with the firm. So with that, any further discussions? Okay. The motion before the board is present. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Resolution is adopted. I want to thank you for your time, and take good care. Have a good day.
Can I ask one question?
You
The
can,
bid bond,
yes.
will that be returned to us, or is that a
The what, sir?
bid bond?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Keith, I'll talk to you right now. Absolutely.
Thank you. Yep. Okay, so we have one other item for board action. I want to thank Chief for his time. Certainly, he was not here, so I'm going to ask you to explain it altogether. I will ask Madam Clerk to call up the item for board action.
Item number 2, accepting proposals for risk assessment firm and threat assessment and management firm in connection with the Arundecoy Police Department School Violence Prevention Program.
Motion to adopt?
Moved.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Chief, why don't you explain the resolution? This is the awarding of the RFP, not the accepting of the grant, but just explain this resolution, what it does. Then I will explain the procedural matter that requires us to have to take a second vote. Go ahead. You got your mic on, thanks.
Thank you. So the resolution is to accept services from Blackhawk Emergency Management Group, which is going to provide the physical risk assessment, as that was awarded through the grant that we were awarded for School Safety Violence Program. They were the only responsible bidder to respond to the RFP that was put out back in March of this year. Interviews were conducted with the team consisting of Councilwoman Romeo, myself, and Don Sinton from the town. Like I said, Blackhawk Emergency Management Group was the only person that responded to the threat assessment, the physical threat assessment portion of it, the risk assessment, excuse me. The second piece of this allows us to also enter into a contract with At Risk International. They provide a threat assessment and management service. So what that does is it's the actual review of cases that are brought forward and providing direction for not only the police department but also the schools that are involved, the school personnel that are involved, as well as directing us with potential services to prevent any type of violent act at the schools. This is a more of interview process, one-on-one conversations with the student counselors from the schools and members of law enforcement and school officials. And they were one of two persons that responded to this. They far and above were more qualified than the other organization, as well as being the lowest responsible bidder. And one big piece for both of these is that both organizations are local.
Good.
So we do have the opportunity to speak with them personally here on Town Hall campus if needed.
Thanks, Chief. Just a few questions just to clarify. So it's a school violence prevention program funded through the Department of Justice, correct?
Correct.
And within that grant, we're required to go out and consult with a risk assessment advisory services firm as well as a threat assessment and management services firm? Those are the two components of the grant, understood. So it's the town acting as the fiduciary grant recipient, but also working with the school districts to implement the school violence prevention program. Okay, very good. I really wish sometimes we could couple resolutions together because we had passed a resolution accepting the grant and then a subsequent one for an RFP. I understand why we don't, but sometimes it gets a little siloed as to what exactly we're doing. Okay, we have now a motion to adopt in a second. I say that because I had a moment of low mental acuity up on the dais 2 weeks ago. I confused myself. It was no fault of Captain Jeske who was explaining it. It just was my mistake. We never took a motion to adopt in a second, so there was a vote passed on a motion that never happened. So with that, are there any questions about this grant? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The resolution is adopted, having been a motion being made, a second, and a unanimous vote of the board members present. So thank you, Chief. Apologies for delaying that 2 weeks. Thank you to Clerk Janier for pointing out my 1,000% batting average is now impaired. So, not that this isn't a serious grant, but I'm glad this was a fixable, remediable one that was undercovered quickly. I'm going to be quiet because the more I talk, the more likely I am to screw something up procedurally. With that, this concludes our body of work for today's special town board meeting. Our next workshop meeting is next Tuesday here in the Broderick Meeting Room, 4 p.m. That would be June 8th. We will be in person again until further notice. And I will now take a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this presentation of the Irondequoit Town Board on ICAT, Government Access.